Okay, so this video is designed to help you with completing the square. Now, we're going to take it one step at a time because that's the best way to learn. But it's also good to know where we're going. So we're going to make a start with these three questions here. Each of them involves solving an equation. And by the time we finish doing that, we will sort of have an idea of what completing the square is, why it's useful, and why we're going to learn it without necessarily being able to do it yet. So if you want to hit pause on the video now and try these three questions, that's the plan. That's why I've done it this way. But if you want to just watch me go through the questions, that might be just as useful too. So it's entirely your choice. So you want to hit pause now and try them, or unpause it, or just leave it running and you can watch me work through the questions. Okay, so the first one, solve the equation. This is a linear equation. So what do I mean by this? It's not quadratic. It doesn't have an x squared in it. So it can be solved using good old balance method. And we're going to do something to both sides of that equation so that we are left with x on one side and a number on the other. So at the moment, we've got x being times by 3 divided by 2, and then subtract 2 equals 10. So our first choice, and it is a choice, we can do whatever we want to both sides of an equation, as long as it's still balanced. So we can add 2 and add 2, or take 2 and take 2. If whatever we do to both sides is still equal. I'm going to add 2 to both sides in this case. So that's going to be step 1. So add 2, still getting used to this pen, add 2, and that leaves us with the following. Now I've got 3x divided by 2, take 2. If I add 2, I am left with 3x divided by 2. That is why we have added 2. On the right hand side, 10 add 2 is 12. And then we're on to our next step. Now at this stage, I would times by 2. You could divide by 3, but I'm going to multiply both sides by 2. And again, it's not necessary to write the steps down. I'm doing that really just to show you, or attempt to show you, what my thinking is here. So times both sides by 2, and then we're left with 3x equals 24. And now the final step, divide both sides by 3. I'm not going to write it down. And we're left with x on the left-hand side and 8 on the right. Now, the second equation here is hopefully something that is familiar if you're learning completing the square. If it isn't, then maybe you need to practice quadratic equations by factorizing. But this is a quadratic equation, and our method for solving it is not balance method, because if we try and rearrange this, we run into some trouble. And maybe I can illustrate that right now. So if we were to try and do what we did last time, adding 10, adding 3x perhaps, we might end up with a situation like this. X squared equals, if we added 3x to both sides and added 10, we might get x squared equals 3x add 10. Now if I square root to get x equals, because that's the name of the game when we're rearranging equations using balance method, we want to get x equals. So if I now square root both sides, I'm left with x equals the square root of 3x add 10. And I'm none the wiser as to what x is, because I now have x equals a number. I have x equals 3x add 10. Well, that's interesting, but it doesn't tell me the answer. It doesn't tell me what x is as a number. And that's what this is about when we're being asked to solve an equation. So getting rid of that and solving it the way that hopefully is familiar is like so. So we're going to factorize, put these things into brackets, double brackets, and we know that those two brackets both have an x in them because of this x squared term over here. And again, it's about taking it in stages and saying, what do we know? We know that because we've got a minus 10 here, these two numbers times together to make the number. So that means that one of the numbers has to be plus, one of them has to be minus. So we can go ahead and write that down. And then finally, they times together to make 10. But when we times that number by this x and this number by this x, we end up with minus 3x. So it's going to be 5 and 10, with the 5 being negative and the 2 being positive, 5 and 2. And then that gives us two solutions. One where one of the solutions, because we've got two brackets times together, one of these brackets has to be 0. So we then get either x add 2 equals 0. That gives us one solution. The other solution comes from the other possibility, which is that the bracket x minus 5 is 0. And this first possibility, x add 2 being 0, would give us x negative 2 as an answer. And this second possibility, where it's the bracket x minus 5 that's negative, then we can add 5 to both sides and x equals 5 is our other solution. So those are the two solutions for that one. Now on to our last question here, which if you paused the video a minute ago, you might have not been able to do because it doesn't factorize. We've got 7 here, 7 times 1. They are the only integer whole number factors of 7. So it would have to be x plus 7, x plus 1. And they don't add together to make 10. So it doesn't factorize. So you may have done quadratic formula and you perhaps were able to apply quadratic formula to this question, in which case you should have got a nice decimal answer. But it's also possible to do this using something called completing the square. And that's what the purpose of the topic that you're attempting to learn by watching this video is for. It is for solving an equation like this where it won't factorize. And interestingly enough, the method that we end up using, I think, is quite similar to this balanced method for solving an equation. But what it does is it allows us to square root and get rid of the x squared. So I'm going to show you this now, but don't try and learn it from this first bit. We're going to do this step by step. Okay, I'm not going to leave you to try and learn it all from this example, but it's useful to see what the whole thing looks like before we start doing it in stages. So this is what the whole thing looks like. So what I'm going to do here is I've got x squared add 10x plus 7. Now I want to replace this bit here, this x squared add 10x, with a square bracket. What do I mean by a square bracket? I mean a bracket that is being squared. So, and in that bracket, we're going to have x and we're going to have a number, just like we do here. Pair of brackets times this out, except this time our bracket will be squared. So it could be something like x add 3 times x add 3. That would be a square bracket, x add 3 squared. But I want this bracket to make, when I times it out, x squared and 10x, because I want to replace this with my new square bracket. So what would that number then need to be? Well, I can tell you right now, it would need to be 5. Because when we times this bracket out, we're going to get x squared, we're going to get 5x, and we're going to get another 5x. If you're not sure about that, okay, here it is in a different color pen over here. X add 5 squared means x add 5 times x add 5. You times that out, you get x squared, you get 5x and another 5x, which gives you 10x, and you get 25. Okay? Now, going back to what we were doing, this x plus 5 squared, I'm going to try and replace x squared plus 10x with this. And you can see it's good so far. We've got x squared. Let's use a different color pen. We've got x squared. We've got 10x. And we want to replace x squared and 10x with the square bracket. But we've also got this imposter of plus 25. When we times out x plus 5 squared, we get x squared, we get 10x, we also get 25. I call it a byproduct. You know, we wanted a bracket that would give us x squared and 10x. We've got this 25. So I'm going to take it away. And back to my blue pen. So if I write here now, minus 25, all of this here, the x plus 5 squared and the minus 25, that is now equal or equivalent to the x squared plus 10x. So I can replace x squared plus 10x with x add 5 squared minus 25. They are the same number. Because if I times out x plus 5 squared, I get all this stuff here, x squared plus 10x plus 25. So if I take 25 away, what am I left with? X squared and 10x, which is what I want to replace with a different expression. Why? You'll find out why in a minute. But that's what I'm trying to do in this first stage. And I've now done it. Now, we've replaced x squared plus 10x with x plus 5 squared minus 25. What about this 7? It's still there. We haven't done anything with it. So we've replaced this with this. The 7 is still there. So I'm going to write it down. Plus 7 equals 0. Now, clearly, we can tidy this up. And let's do it straight away. So x plus 5 squared is our square bracket. Minus 25 adds 7. I'm careful with this, but it's minus 18. Equals 0. And this is where this becomes really useful, and you can see why we've done it, because now I can add 18 to both sides. Which gives me x plus 5 squared equals 18. I can now, and this is the key step, I can now square root my square bracket, because x plus 5 squared square rooted is x plus 5. I'm going to square root the other side as well, so it's balanced. And this would be plus or minus. Why would it be plus or minus? Well, what's the square root of 9? 3? Did you remember minus 3? Because the square root of 9 is 3 or minus 3. They are both numbers that if we square them, give us 9. So we need to consider both. So same with this. If we square root both sides of our equation, we've got x plus 5 on the left, happy days. But on the right, we've also got the square root of 18, but it must be plus or minus. But this is good news too, because this is where we're going to get two solutions from, which we kind of expect when we solve a quadratic equation. So now the last step to get x equals, just like we do when we solve a balanced method, take 5 from both sides. We've got x equals minus 5 plus or minus the square root of 18. And from there, our two solutions are x equals minus 5 plus root 18 and x equals minus 5 take the square root of 18. And this is now finished. Okay, job done. If you solved it using the quadratic formula, bear with me. So if you solve this using the quadratic formula, you will have got a decimal answer, but it will be the same as these ones. So minus 5 take the square root of 18 is minus 9.2 to one decimal place. And the other solution, minus 5 take root 18 is, sorry, that one is minus 9.2. And the other one, minus 5 add root 18 is minus 0.76 or 0.8 to one decimal place. So you should have got those answers if you used the formula, but now we're talking about completing the square. You've now seen an example from start to finish. I wouldn't expect you to be able to do it from this. And depending on the quality of my explanation, it's open to your judgment. But I'm going to clear this now. I'm going to move on to phase 1, step 1 of you being able to solve by completing the square yourself. Okay, so we're going to take it in stages and I'm going to go with you on each step. So here we go, step 1. I'm going to take through 2 examples on the left-hand side. And then I'm going to invite you to pause the video and attempt the 2 questions on the right-hand side yourself, and then unpause the video and see how you've done. And obviously then, if you get these 2 questions right, you're ready for the task. If you're not, you can rewind the video. And if it still doesn't make sense, I guess, send me an email. So here we go, worked example. Now you'll notice maybe, looking at this first example, that we've got x squared at 10x and we don't have a number. Not a problem. In fact, it's going to make things a bit easier, which is why we're doing this to start with. So completing the square for this expression. It's an expression, it's not an equation. So notice also now, we are not going to be attempting to, on this first attempt, we are not going to be attempting to solve anything. We are just going to practice that first step. How do I make a square bracket? And it's really simple. When we times out our double bracket, the number times us by the x twice. Okay, so let's just say, and I'll get rid of this, but just to help the conversation, let's say we times out x plus a squared. Now, what is x plus a squared? It means x plus a times by another x plus a. And what do we get when we times out x plus a times x plus a? We get x times x, which is x squared. X times a, which is 1ax. This a times x, which is another 1a times x. And then a times a, which is a squared. We get x squared plus 2ax plus a squared. So we always end up with whatever this number here, a is. I've called it a, but it could be any number. Whatever this number a here is, we are going to end up with two of them. So if I want 10x, I need to times out x plus 5 squared, because I'm going to get 5x, I'm going to get another 5x, it's going to make 10x, which, after a lot of chalking for me, means that our job becomes quite simple, especially if we are starting to understand it. So let's clear. Okay, so we're going to start with this one, and then so our square bracket is going to be x plus 5 squared. So we know when we times this out now, we're going to get x squared, we're going to get 2 lots of 5x, which is 10x. We're also going to get 5 times 5, which is 25. So I'm going to take away 5 times 5. Now, you might be wondering, why is he written 5 squared instead of just writing 25? But you might be right, wondering why I've written 5 squared. But the reason is that this is just generally going to be the case now. So with this next one, I can tell you that the next one, the bracket again, it will be half of what the coefficient of x here is. So we've got minus, coefficient means the number in front. So the number in front of the x is a minus 10. The number in the bracket will be minus 5. The number in front of the x is 12. The number in the bracket will be 6, because we're going to get 2 lots of them when we times the bracket out. So I'm going to put x minus 5 here, squared. Now, when I times that bracket out, the number that I will get when I times that bracket out is minus 5 times minus 5, 25. So I need to take that away again. But again, in general, it will always be this number squared, because that number will be squared when we times the bracket out. So we need to take it away. So this first one, we've got x add 5 squared minus 5 squared, which simplifies to x plus 5 squared minus 25. Second one, x take 5 is the square bracket. That's going to stay as a square bracket, because remember, we do some stuff with that later. And I'm taking away minus 5 squared. Minus 5 squared is 25. So once again, I'm subtracting 25. Hit pause on the video and see if you can do the ones on the right. Okay, the idea is use the things I've written on the left to help you with the ones on the right. And if you hit pause, you can see how you go. Have a go. Come on, have a go. You can do it. See what I've done. Try and do the same thing. And in the bits where you've gone wrong, you'll be able to kind of have a look and see which bits specifically you got wrong. And that'll help you to work out what you need to do to get it right. So hit pause now. Unpause it when you're ready to see the answers. Okay, so you're ready to see the answers. Here they are. So this first one, we've got x squared add 6x. So my bracket is x plus half of 6, which is 3. And I'm going to take away 3 squared, which simplifies to make x add 3 squared, minus 9. The second question, we've got, again, our square bracket, which will be x, half of that minus 6, which is minus 3. So x minus 3 squared. Subtract this number squared. So subtract minus 3 squared, which gives us x take 3 squared minus 3 times minus 3 is plus 9. So minus 9. And this is it, folks. This is it. It is half the coefficient of x in the bracket, and then you take that away squared every time, every question. Hit pause, try the task that's on the next page. Wait to press pause though, because you're going to need to see it. So let's take the next page, which is here, and let me get rid of all this writing. So here are some questions for you to do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 questions for you to have a go at. Press pause now. Try the questions. If you need help, unpause it, because I'm going to do the first one in pen. Okay, but you try it now, hit pause. Okay, so at this point, you are either have answered all the questions and you're ready for the answers, or you just want to see the first one. So I'm just going to work through the first one with you, and then we'll get the answers on the board. So the first one, x plus 4x. So my bracket, my square bracket, I'm just going to cross this out. Amateurish. Right. So my square bracket in this case is x, and now it's going to be half of the number in front of the x. So the number in front of the x is 4, so it's going to be x plus positive 2. So x plus 2 squared minus this number here, squared. So minus 2 squared. No need for the bracket whatsoever. Don't know why I drew it. And now x add 2 squared, take away 4. That is the answer to question 1. Okay. Question 2, very similar. Okay. X squared add 8x. What do you think is going to go in the bracket this time, folks? X plus 4. Subtract 4 squared. Simplify. What's the square term there? X plus 4 squared minus 16. It's the same every time. So if you think you've got it now, hit pause again. So you can do those questions that are left. I'm going to work out how to get rid of this ink. And then when you're ready, unpause it and the answers will be with you. Okay, so here are the answers. You want to hit pause at this point and give yourself time to mark them. One thing I would say here is with some of these later questions where we've got answers as decimals, I would personally have got answers as fractions. So I'm going to write them as fractions because these might be the questions that you got stuck with. So seeing me work through them might be helpful, but also because personally, I think they should be fractions. So this one here, if we look at the question, x squared plus 3x, so our bracket, same format, it's half of 3. Okay, now you can write 1.5 or you can just write 3 over 2, and I think that makes life easier to leave it as a fraction. So x plus 3 over 2 is my bracket squared, and now I'm taking away again this number squared, so it's 3 over 2 squared. And if we go ahead and simplify that, we're going to get x plus 3 over 2 squared minus 9 over 4. We square 3 over 2, it's 3 over 2 times 3 over 2. Multiply fractions times the numerators together times the denominators. So we've got the numerator becomes 3 times 3, denominator is 2 times 2, and that's where we get that answer from. Similar situation with this one. So we've got x plus 5 over 2 because it's half of 5. Take away 5 over 2 squared. 5 over 2 squared is 25 over 4. And then this one, the last question, x minus 7 over 2 squared, subtract 7 over 2 squared, which is 49 over 4. So if you want to give your answers as fractions, folks, and why wouldn't you? This is how you do it. Okay, so that's the first part of this lesson accomplished. So well done if you've made it to this stage. I think that is the most difficult part of completing the square. So if you've reached this point, keep going, because you're going to be able to do this. And this is considered one of the more difficult topics at GCSE. Certainly when I started teaching maths, this was the one method that I had forgotten, okay, because there's quite a lot of steps. But by doing it like this in stages, it's going to help you to be really successful. So here's the next one. So the next stage is to look at completing the square with expressions like these. And these are more like the question that I went through at the start, because not only have we got an x squared and an x now, we've also got a number that's going to hang around until the end. And then we're going to do something with it. But to begin with, it's just going to hang around. So if you take a look at this first one with me, we've got x squared, take 2x, add 3. And we're going to start by doing what we did last time. So we're going to look at this x squared minus 2x part, ignore the plus 3. Like I said, it's just going to hang around till the end until it's ready to be simplified. But the x squared take 2x, we want to replace with a square bracket, which is obviously going to be x minus 1x, and then take away minus 1 squared. So here we go with that. Okay, and that's the bit that we've just been practicing. And now that plus 3 that's going to hang around, I need to make sure I keep that guy involved. So we've now replaced the x squared take 2x with this new expression. We can now simplify that. So we've got x take 1 squared, take away minus 1 times minus 1 is plus 1. But we are taking that away. Apologies for that. We are taking away 1. The minus 1 times minus 1 is positive 1. And then there's a minus in front of that bracket. So it's minus 1. And then we've got this plus 3 guy that's still hanging around, not done anything with him yet. And then the last line, I don't know why I'm ascribing genders to these numbers, but there you go. X take 1 squared. And then minus 1 add 3 is 2. And that's now simplified. Done. Voila. So you might want to pause and watch that again, especially with all the distracting things that happen in the middle of it. But if you're okay, we'll go on and do the second example, and then you can pause it and try something yourself. So the second example, much like the first, really, there's nothing massively different going on here. So we're going to start by completing the square for x squared take 2x, which is x minus half of that minus 2, which is minus 1. So x minus 1 squared, take away my minus 1 squared, and bring down that other number that's still there. Not done anything with that yet. We have now replaced the x squared take 2x with this expression. Now let's simplify things, leave my square bracket for now, and square my minus 1, which is plus 1. So that's now minus plus 1, which is minus 1. And the minus 3 is still there, which leaves us with our final line. And I do like my little arrows. X take 1 squared minus 4. Done. Okay, so that is now my expression. X take 1 squared minus 4 is equivalent to the expression we started with. Okay, if you were to times that bracket out now, and feel free to do so if you want, if you were to times out the bracket x take 1 squared minus 4, you would end up with x squared take 2x minus 3. So that's all we've done. We've just rewritten it. And hopefully in a way that you can now follow. So if you want to hit pause on the video and then try those 2 questions on the right, when you hit unpause, I will go through those 2 questions on the right with you. Hit pause. Okay, here we go. So the second 2 questions on the right hand side, x squared take 2x plus 6. My square bracket, x take half of 2 is 1 squared, take away minus 1 squared plus 6. So that's the final answer for that one. And the second one, again, it's x take 1 squared, take away that minus 1 squared, minus 6, that becomes x take 1 squared, minus 1 minus 6, which makes minus 7, and we've got x take 1 squared minus 7 as our final answer. Fantastic. If you've made it to this stage, how exciting. Press pause. Don't press pause, unpause. And instead, follow me on to the next page where we'll do a task, and then you can hit pause. Okay, here we go. Next page is this. So we've got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 20 questions. If you can do all 20 of these, you can do this topic. Okay, you might want to do every other one. And definitely these ones that have got a number missing, that's just like what we did last time. So we should be okay with all of this. So if you want to hit pause now and then unpause when you're ready for the answers. Okay, so the answers are here. If you want to mark your answers now, I'm going to ask you just to hit pause if you want to spend a bit more time marking your work, because we're going to go straight on in the video now to the next part, because we are nearly there. So now, hopefully you can see this question here is the same one that we did at the start. So I was true to my promise. I'm not going to get you to do it all in one go. We've broken it down into stages. And really now, the first two things I'm going to do are things you've already been doing. It's just that last stage now that we're going to add on. And I think in many ways, the last stage is the easiest, because the last stage is rearranging using a balance method, which you're already familiar with. So well done for getting here, and hopefully we can get this wrapped up pretty soon. So x squared plus 10x adds 7. I'm going to start by completing the square for that expression. So I'm going to write a bracket x plus 5 squared, take 5 squared, and that plus 7 is hanging around, leave it there. X plus 5 squared minus 25 add 7 is 0. And now I can combine the minus 25 and the plus 7 into minus 18 equals 0. And hopefully at this stage, you can remember what I did next, or maybe you will start to as we move forward. So I'm just going to put my little arrow here and I keep going with those. So the next line now, I'm going to add 18 to both sides, just like we do with balance method. So this becomes x plus 5 squared equals positive 18. Now, with my bracket equal to this number, it's primed to be square rooted. And that's what I'm going to do. So square root both sides, x plus 5 equals plus or minus, remember, the square root of 18. And we're almost there. Now take 5 away from both sides. So we've made x the subject. We've written it as x equals, if we take 5 from both sides, and we got x equals minus 5 plus or minus the square root of 18. And we basically finish at this stage. But if you want to write down your answers in full, we've got x is minus 5 add root 18, or x equals minus 5 take the square root of 18. And at this stage, you can have a go at the question on the right. Use the example to help you. Okay, there's lots of stages here, lots to take in one go. The whole point of trying to do it this way is so that it's broken down into stages for you, and you've got an example to look at. So by all means, use it. And the great thing about doing this through a video means that you're not rushed. Okay, so we're not waiting, you know, somebody over there who finished it 5 minutes ago is not going to be complaining if it takes you longer. So take your time, try and understand the example, and try and follow each stage. In fact, you could even write the question down and play the video of the example again, and then pause it and try and do each stage with this equation, which I've left for you to do. So if you want to hit pause now, have a go with that. Unpause when you're ready to see the your turn question. Okay, so the your turn question is this. We've got x squared take 6, add 7 equals 0. And we're going to start by writing our bracket. So that's going to be x minus 3 this time squared, take away minus 3 squared. add 7 equals 0. X take 3 squared minus 9 add 7 is 0, which gives us x take 3 squared minus 2 equals 0. Add the 2 to both sides now, and I've got x take 3 squared equals 2. Square root both sides, we've got x take 3 equals plus or minus the square root of 2. And finally, adding that 3, we got this answer. And maybe you even took that extra stage and wrote x equals 3 add root 2 and x equals 3 minus root 2. It's important to understand that, we're getting two solutions here, but I'll write it down myself. So we've got x is 3 add root 2, and we've got x equals 3 take root 2. Okay, so if you needed your answer as a decimal, you could work that out now. Or if there's some other context where you need to know what x is as a number, you can go ahead and do that. But we're ready now for the task, and here it is. So this is the task. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 questions for you to have a good go at. If you can do all of the 11 of these, then wow, you can do this topic. So why not try all 11 if you've got time? If you haven't, or if you're feeling super confident with this, you could maybe do every other one. All right. So if you want to hit pause now, the answers will be ready when you unpause. Right, there's the answers, folks. Bit of an apology really needed for the last one, because there's no solutions, which is a bit mean, really. So if you were sat trying to do that one for half an hour, I guess you've learned that some answers don't have solutions. Is the best consolation I can give you. Now, also, some of you might have done questions here where you've got fractions instead of decimals. And if so, congratulations, because I am definitely on your side with that. I believe wholeheartedly in giving answers as fractions instead. So let me just see if I can write in the answers as fractions instead, so that you can see and check that your answers are correct. So we got x plus 3 over 2 there instead of 1.5 minus 1.25 is 5 over 4. And so your answer will be minus 3 over 2 plus root 5 over 4, and minus 3 over 2 take root 5 over 4. You could also simplify that root 5 over 4 could also be written as root 5 divided by 2. So if you did that, maybe if you use your calculator, you might have got that answer, and that's okay as well. So this one here as well, the minus 5 over 2 instead of minus 2.5. The square root here is 5.25, which is 21 over 4. So the square root of that. And again, for that, you might have got root 21 over 2, especially if you've used your calculator at any point. So if you've got this answer, but you've got root 21 over 4 or root 21 over 2 instead of root 5.25, and if you've got 5 over 2 instead of minus 2.5, you can go ahead and tick those. And you have now completing the square. So all there's left for me to do is congratulate you and hope sincerely that this video has helped you to progress with your maths today. Obviously, any comments, questions, feel free to post them, and I'll try and get back to you on that. Thank you very much.